that up.
Yeah, I'll introduce this item to that. So good evening and welcome to our annual budget hearing for 25-26 fiscal year and academic year. Before we get into the detailed discussions of our presentation tonight, I just want to give just a quick reflection on us as a district and what we've done over the past year. And when we look at strategic planning and continuous improvement, the letter to the community highlights the areas of our district report card: learning and achievement, financial, operational stability, safe, orderly, healthy, engaged, and connected. Tonight's budget, which you will be learning more about, is built around these continuous improvement objectives. You know, when we think about decisions that the board makes, our staff makes, our admin makes, and our parents make, we're making decisions to support where we want to be going forward. I'm very proud and privileged to introduce Mr. Mark Hart tonight, who will be sharing the specifics of our budget. This is no easy task. Our board has been actively involved, prepping and preparing decision-making as we've moved through the past academic year, fiscal year, and as we prepare for the next budget. And we know that a budget is fluid, and a budget, it's okay. Some things move back and forth within, noting the time of the year and when our final numbers are established in October 15th. This is where we are right now. This is a tradition that we've done around the same time frame, and a lot of great celebrations to talk about and where we are. Mr. Mark.
Okay, thank you. First for introducing you, Mr. Black, and then people who are here tonight, and then also we do record this meeting. It creates an opportunity for people to go back in and listen to all that we talk about tonight. I know that as school board members, a lot of the items that you hear tonight are things that you have heard probably often as school board members throughout our meetings, but it is really important for us to kind of create a point of discussion each year to be able to share our school district's annual budget and have our stakeholders know what is going on. Just kind of a reflection point for me. I know I kind of share this introduction each year and just refresh it a little bit. This is my 15th time being able to have the privilege to talk about our school district's budget to our school board, our community, and that is definitely a privilege. I feel that all of you, all of our staff members, and our stakeholders are represented in our district's budget. Their voices are heard to try and create the best educational opportunities we can for our students, because that is our mission of our school district. And like I said, it being the 15th time doing this, a goal of every time we do this is to try to have something better each and every year for what we're doing. And I think that that's where, like Mr. Black was talking about, continuous improvement. It doesn't mean that the booklet is better. It means that our budget is better. And we talked about that today as an administrative team in the back, that all of you as our principals and leaders of buildings also have influence on our budget. And please share that with your staff members to watch the meeting tonight. Be knowledgeable of the budget and all the goals that we have. So all of you have an opportunity to have the packet with you. It's also online. I'm not going to go through every page. I'm going to try to highlight what I feel like are some of the important parts. If I miss anything that you're really hoping that I talk about, please just stop me, and then I will go back and talk about it in greater detail. If I don't have the answer tonight, or Mr. Black does it, we'll get it to you and make sure that we answer your questions. So kind of just scrolling through the first page there, Mr. Black kind of talked about the beginning with his letter that is included in the booklet. This introduction here talks about that we just don't do this by chance every year. There are processes and objectives that we have each year that try and meet what our objectives annually are each year to meet the needs of our students. And we want to make sure that we are recognizing that it's a journey. When we talk to our staff at their opening session, we talked about our facility projects. That was one thing that I shared with them during a few minutes, is we can't do everything all the time right away. I use the analogy is we haven't been able to do it yet. Our board does a great job of recognizing what we're trying to accomplish, and that is always an ongoing journey. So it might not happen right now, but if it's something that fits within our school district's objectives, we try and talk about it and get it into our plan. This right here is what, in early August, Mr. Black went through that. That's our continuous improvement plan as a one-page summary, just showing that there are a lot of topics in there that relate specifically to what we're looking at each year into our budget. The executive summary talks about, okay, if you really wanna take one page and share it with the community, these are things that you can talk about. The budget projects a 9.5% increase in the tax levy and a 4.3% increase in overall spending. I'm gonna talk about the spending a little bit later, because there's a couple pages that I can show you that show you exactly where that is coming from and what it is, and then it really simplifies the spending component of the budget. The biennium budget has a really big influence on our budget each year. And this year especially, with a couple of the factors that are impacting the first note on there as it relates to the tax levy and mill rate. The $325 that we are allowed to increase the revenue limit is not going to be funded by additional state equalization aid. So when that happens, taxpayers across the state of Wisconsin, this isn't just New London, are footing that bill of the allowable revenue increase. That was what was approved in the biennium budget. So if you simplify this from a simple math perspective, if New London receives equalization aid on about 2/3 of our spending, it's about 65%. That means that the additional revenue limit authority is not 2/3 aided by the state, it's 100% aided by the taxes. So then those numbers up there, especially with the levy and mill rate increase, you could cut them by 2/3 if we normally would have the same equalization aid appropriations that we've had in the past. That said, that's the budget we have to work with. We share the information, and we know that there's another biennium to come up in 2 years, and something else will be in there, and that's what our responsibility is as a public entity, to respond to that. There are always factors, like if you were in an organization, you might call this a SWOT analysis. What are some strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? We have a lot of things that impact our budget each year. Trying to remain competitive with our salary and benefit structure is really important, because we are a service industry. Our employees are delivering the service to our students, so that is always going to be one of our largest expenditures. And when we have a service-oriented organization and they're delivering the services, we want to have a great staff to be able to do that, and to attract and retain staff. Wherever they're coming from, they're looking at, what are you offering for me to come and work for your organization? Declining enrollment is impacting almost all school districts across the state. That's not a New London only scenario. It's across the state, but when you lose students, your revenue is impacted in the long run, because when you receive money on a per pupil basis, as you get increases, but no, to the revenue limit, but lower enrollment, the money that you actually get continues to be squished down by that. That's the way the revenue limit formula works. We also have a lot of expenses in all of our buildings. As all of you know, we have 7 schools. We have this building, we have a maintenance shop, we have a bus garage, we have a lot of acres of property. We are trying to continually maintain what the investment of our taxpayers has given us as a public entity, and that comes with expenditures. Also, federal funding has been in the news a lot. At first this year, we were wondering, would we see some significant or major reductions to our federal funding? And We did not receive significant reductions, but it's something we're being very cognizant of moving forward. If we get about 5%, between 5 and 7% of our revenues from federal funding, if that goes away, we're still relying on that revenue to help us with our daily operations. Then lastly, the last two things, a lot of organizations are struggling with staffing shortages. There's not enough people to be able to do the work in all organizations, so that puts additional stress on your organization to deliver services with vacancies. Or you're not able to find a person to successfully fill the position you're hoping to have. And we're competing against a lot of other organizations around us that are also trying to do the same thing. So that does put stress on our budget. And I always want to talk about student achievement, because that's why we're here. We are trying to do our best with all of our grades, whether it's our early childhood students or our seniors, in doing the best we can to help them achieve, whether that's a curriculum or a resource or something they have in their building. It's our responsibility to try and help get the students what they need to be able to achieve the results that they're trying to have. And what I have seen over the 15 years of things, because organizations change, we have a lot of options for kids. That's awesome. I think of what our seniors can pick from. They have tons of classes. I think of our middle schooler and high schoolers and all of the programs and co-curriculars that they have to be able to pick from. It is great. You think of our work that our elementaries are doing to be able to have a lot of options, whether it's direct instruction right in front of their teacher, or being pulled out into a small group, or having a special of music or art or phy-ed or technology. We provide a lot for everybody, and that's how that well-rounded education is put together. The only one note is just we're debt-free for 2 years in a row now. That's a huge positive for our school district. The only thing that I share with that is a lot of school districts that have debt, they'll use that as a levy smoothing process. Even municipalities do that too, where they say, let's keep the tax levy right here, or the mill rate right here, and we can use debt service to influence that up or down in that year. Because even though we record this and we send this information out, I wouldn't believe thousands of residents are monitoring every single thing that we do every year. When they monitor it is when they get their tax bills in December, and they look at it and go, whoa, what happened there? How did this happen? So a lot of times, public entities will use debt to help them keep things as consistent as possible. But when you're debt-free, that's a positive too, because you're not paying principal and interest payments. So I look at it as more of a positive than a negative, but I noted that is in there. I already talked about the budget biennium, but one really significant positive is the increase to special education aid. It is a categorical aid that school districts in Wisconsin receive for expenditures that they have in what we call Fund 27. Last biennium, there was an attempt to increase that as well. And since it's not a sum sufficient appropriation, it's a sum certain, means if there's $5 million, it goes to all school districts. If all school districts were to get 42% of their eligible funding, it would probably be more than 5 million, just using rough numbers of math. So that's the way the appropriation is. We budget for it and hope that we are receiving what was in the biennium, but we also plan for changes that happen. So last year, when we knew it would be a little less than 30% instead of 33%, we shared that with the board and talked about how it would impact us moving forward. So that is definitely a positive in our next 2 years of biennium budget, with moving up to 42 to 45%, and I'll show you the amount impact of that in just a little bit. Another note from the biennium budget that is definitely impacting New London because of specific reasons is open enrollment. So when you have students who open enroll to other districts, there's an aid transfer process that happens there. The school district counts the student if it's your resident student, but then they pay out to another district for educating that student, and vice versa. So if you have students coming in to your district, there's an aid transfer into your district, but you didn't count that student for revenue limit purposes. And the amounts definitely went up more than typical from the prior year. You could see that on there. For a regular open enrolled student, we received $8,962, and next year it would be $10,102. We also have more students that open enroll out than in for special education. We have a closed open enrollment for special education, so that makes sense. That's board action that happens in January. So when you have more students open enrolling out than in, that has an impact on your budget, especially when that aid amount goes up. So that is definitely something that impacts our estimated budget at this time. Our third Friday count is next Friday, and when we get to that count, and then when we get into October, we can talk about what the final impact will be, because right now, it is the estimated per pupil payments. So again, for just simple math, for every 2 students that go out, we have 1 student that comes in. So that's where with a 2-to-1 ratio of 2 students out, 1 student in for our open enrollment program. The voucher program, we've talked about that for several years, but it definitely has an impact on our budget as well. It's a little over $1.3 million that is added to the levy because of the voucher program. And all school districts who have voucher students are paying the same rates up there. It just depends on the number of students that you have going out. Last year, we had 94 students that were part of the voucher program, and this year, we don't know how many that might be. I wouldn't anticipate the number going down. It has gone up every year that the voucher program has been in place, but that does add to the local tax levy. School districts are really the fiscal agent for that transfer back and forth, and the hard part of that is most taxpayers don't understand that, and I know there's been discussion about trying to remove that from the levy piece, but there hasn't been a good solution determined in the government processing yet to make that happen. And then the closing note is, anybody you who see that has questions, we're always here to ask, even if it's after the fact. We want people to feel like we're doing the best job that we can do to clearly communicate, even though it's not always a simple process. The next few pages I'm gonna go through just a little bit quicker. This mission, vision, and guiding principles has been in there. It's something that's a foundation of our district. The breakdown of funds here just talks about, you may hear me say Fund 10, Fund 27. That's our accounting procedures and processes for our district. I wanted to note Fund 27 just a little bit more because that's where we make a transfer back and forth. So last year, we transferred $3.9 million from Fund 10 to 27 to zero out Fund 27, with the increase in special education aid, that categorical aid that I talked about being 42%. We're anticipating the number going down to $3.4 million. So that helps with the budgeting process of your transfer that you make from Fund 10 to Fund 27, because at the end of the year, it has to have a zero balance. You can't have a negative or a positive. They use Fund 27 as the tracking component for that fund to determine the eligible expenditures. Fund 80 we talk about each year. There are some programs that are inside Fund 80. There are no changes that are in there from last year. For programs, I would say the one change is we have more students attending our after-school programming, And we also had board action where they increased the after-school programming by $1 for each of the categories. Just wanted to note that we've had the after-school program for a long time, and it's a good program for our students and also our families to take advantage of.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
On the fitness center workers and equipment, I know you have monitors after school. Are there any in the morning? And I got a request, is it open to the community to come use? And I'm like, I don't think so, but.
So we have monitors to supervise the students before
It's
and
students,
after
okay.
school. We have not had the fitness center open for the last several years. When we talked about it the last few years, it's really more out of a safety component, and the hours would be so limited for community members to come in as well. Because with early birds starting at, I think 6:45, people are coming in, it's such a short time, and then even after school, you have all of your athletes using the facility too.
Can we ask questions?
Yeah.
In time then?
Of course.
Okay, so in, let's see, going back to the school voucher, is that, income, orientated as far as, is there a limitation of, amount of income a family can have before they qualify for that voucher?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's set by the level of poverty for a family, and I don't have the statistics in front of me right now.
Okay.
But I know that if you Googled school choice in Wisconsin, they would tell you what the
Yeah.
limits are.
And then going back to the special education funding, we get this additional aid from the state. So is that gonna leave an additional $500,000 then in Fund 10? Because the way I understood it, with that additional aid, there's gonna be, only $3.4 million coming out of Fund 10 to meet the expenditures of the special education. Now there's only gonna be 3.5 or something. So that $500,000, is that, or is that gonna be earmarked for the special education to enhance that program?
Great question, Bill. And in a perfect world, that it would be exactly how it would work, where you would have the increase of the 500,000 be able to be there for additional expenditures, but it's not. When we were working through our budget projections, we were actually hoping for more than $325 per kid, because that's actually less than inflation was this year. So it kind of is a trade-off where we were hoping for even $350 or $375 or $400. The board really advocated to try and bring low-spending school districts like New London up. I know when you had your legislative meeting with legislators up at the library, it was, hey, school districts like New London have always been low spenders, help them out by doing both. So it was, it didn't give us more revenue than we thought we were going to. And the second piece of it is, the reason why I had the open enrollment transfer in there is because that increased the expenditures for open enrollment, and you have to pay that amount. So that eroded or ate away at it. And then one other note, because it will make sense, is there's this categorical aid for your rolling 3-year pupil count average. And that has been, I believe, I'm gonna forget the number, but it's been the same number for, I think it's $742 for the last 3 bienniums. And again, that was something we thought that even if it goes up $20, it helps you stave off the decrease. So yes, we had some increases to the revenues, but it was taken away by, some other things that didn't happen. And also, going back up to some items in our budget too, the $337,000 that came in revenue limit authority and the $500,000 definitely were increases to revenues, but we had increased expenditures across the board as well. There's some staff increases that were due for wages. A big piece of our budget is we added school buses, multiple school buses back to the budget, where in prior years we only had 1 bus, so we added 2 buses. The buses are $140,000 for the new unit. It's netted off by a trade-in, so easy math, we didn't get $40,000 for the new bus, but it adds that $100,000 to each of those additional units for our expenditures. So we had some increases to revenue, but we also had some increases to expenditures as well. The one note that I was talking to Mr. Black today about is the hardest piece of the puzzle to communicate is on staffing right now, because we just have a lot going on in our staffing pool. You remember earlier in August, we were trying to talk about speech and language as an example. It's probably the most relevant, fresh discussion that we had, where we're really trying to support our students with speech and language and not being able to find a staff member to be able to, an on-site staff member to be able to support that. And when I was building the budget, we were hopeful that we were gonna be able to secure additional individuals, but now what we're doing is we're trying to use our existing staff, still use virtual contracted staff. So it really does change a lot, and as a board, you've seen a lot of the resignations and then in turn hires that keep coming forward. But this is what we believe is our best case scenario of our budget. Earlier in August, the board also talked about during the committee and the board then approved, we budgeted for the additional reading specialist and posted for them. They are built within our budget this year if we're able to secure some candidates. So that is built into our budget if we indeed expend that. We put no FTE change to administrative staff, but we had a change in the high school this year with Mr. Yerke leaving for a different school district, and we're working through the changes that have happened there and how to work through that. So it's kind of been a divide and conquer of duties with the team up at the high school, really just trying to work within the parameters that the board supported. Other than that, I didn't have anything else. I just wanted to show that whole component with losing students, 47 FTE students, and then how the impact of open enrollment is. So we're transferring that, what I call the net, so the revenue minus the expenditures of the open enrollment program for the district. And just as a reminder, more often than not, the students have not attended the school district. They're going to either the district that they've already lived in and they moved here, or they've already always been attending because either their parents drive that way to work or for whatever reason. But that said, we are very aware of open enrollment, and that's always a piece of our continuous improvement plan puzzle. Yes, Chris, were you gonna ask a question?
Yeah, the difference between last year's special education aid and this year's special education aid, you're estimating to be approximately $500,000,
Yes.
right? So that, correct me if I'm wrong, that means that our general fund is $500,000 better than it would have been had that not happened, because we would have had to transfer that money over to the special education fund, and now it remains in the general fund. Am I correct in that? Okay. That was my question. So that's gonna be helpful to these things like adding the reading specialists and things like that we need to do.
I do think that it's not as simple as just saying that we have 500,000 additional though, because we're also
Declining enrollment.
And we also were hoping that we would receive more than 325
Yeah.
as the biennium process is working. But I look at that as factors change
But I
every year in
mean-
the budget, you're right.
But I mean,
We're gonna
those
have-
factors would have been there, and anyway, and so if we hadn't got the increase in special ed aid, we would be looking at a much tighter budget.
Yes, correct. Any other questions before I keep going? Oh, yes, sorry.
So, I see on here the 8% budget increase to health insurance plans, but I thought when we did the CPI, the full CPI, I thought we weren't gonna do the 8%. Isn't that what we talked about?
Yes, yeah, Mr. Heidemann asked me about that as well, and I'll be honest, I wasn't 100% sure exactly what to put as the number in there, because there was a lot of board discussion back and forth about how that looked, and the official motion did have the 0%, but the committee is going to be meeting in October and still has an opportunity to consider adjusting that and pivoting with what is in there. What I used for the budget is just what happened last year, and then how are we moving forward this year. We did have a lot of staff members that decided not to take our insurance moving forward with the health insurance change. So from an expenditure standpoint, it was less of an impact than what was approved, because we had staff members who decided not to take insurance in January.
So that brings me to my second question on that. How much is that 8%? How much do we think that is going to be?
So with our loss ratio of health insurance, we know that it's gonna be more than 8%, so the committee will have to decide what changes in the plan to make it less than whatever the board decides to approve. So the board approved the insurance from January to December. So that rate is known from July 1st to December 31st.
Okay.
And then whatever the board approves in likely October or November for the insurance will be the final marching order of the health insurance budget.
You're just looking for like a number,
I'm
like
looking
how
for a
much is 8%?
number. How much is 8%?
Yeah, in other words, 8% of what our annual budget is now, what is it, what is that?
So 8% of our budget, let's just say insurance is $3 million, looking at less than $250,000 because it's broken over 2 fiscal years.
It's still quite a bit of money.
Without getting too far into that, because we've spent a lot of time on that in the past, we're still catching up as it relates to that. We're still catching up from some of our past very large CPI raise years that we've had. We're catching up on bus purchases that we got behind on because of how we paid for those CPI raises. We delayed replacement cycles on buses. That was one of many things we did. Yeah, we're gonna have a hard discussion on insurance. It doesn't look like our renewal, or our, I'm looking for the right term, doesn't look like our usage has dropped at all. And our rates again are gonna come in not so pleasant. And we're gonna have some hard discussions to have again. But on a plus side, some of the decisions we made last year are starting to look like we went in the right direction. And, yeah, we definitely need to be very conscious of the budget, because some of the things that are probably in our future, we're gonna have to pay for. And we're gonna need the adequate fund balance to do that, so that's one we're definitely gonna have to focus some on. Not that we need to remove it, but it's definitely, something we need to look at, because as we've talked in the past, when we renew CPI, and we had that discussion this spring, we did that with the idea that we'd stay flat, and that we can't continue to spend more and spend more and spend more, because we know what's coming, and there's nothing great insurance-wise looking at us in the future, so.
I mean, that's almost 2 buses right there.
Yeah,
That's what it pays for, so.
yeah.
If we have to do that and our budget is that tight, then we go
Well,
back.
we
not
can't go back
purchasing
to-
buses again or something.
Well, that's not really a very optimistic look to go that route again, so yeah, that one's probably not going to be coming in the future, but, I understand why you had to put a number there, but that's a discussion I guess we'll be having this fall, so.
Okay,
Thanks, Jim.
can I keep moving? Okay. Next, referendum information. It's really important to talk about the $1.3 million annually that can be levied for projects as approved in that particular question in 2018. This year, the high school roof and the middle school roof were a part of that puzzle. should be no surprise, we've been doing roofing work the last several years with those dollars, and that's what those funds are used for. So I will keep going. Grant information, I put the federal budget in there just so you can see what programs entail with that. The one that I did remove out of the federal budgets this year is ESSER funding. You remember we had rounds 1, 2, and 3 for ESSER funding. Those were exhausted last September. Always, brought to the board for approval, but those are not a part of our budget. So when you see federal revenues going down, you remember I said we didn't see a reduction in federal revenues? If somebody looks at the package, well, that's not true, look at how much it went down. Well, it's because it went down on the ESSER, which we knew was one-time funds that were there. These other programs have been standalone programs for several years that we've had access to be able to use. And then each year I put the budget that is there, and I think the really important line in there is the last one where it says, no. The primary increase or decrease to funding of grants is related to carryover of funds not spent in the prior year. So those grants will have a carryover that they allow you to spend, and they put that in the we call it WISE grants. But the portal where then you have to access it in prior years. Usually there's a restriction of how much you can carry over for how long, and we make sure that we spend it when we can. And part of the benefit of ESSER was we were able to use that first instead of some of the grants second, and that makes sense because we knew we were going to lose that. Now they're telling all of us, make sure you use as much of your federal funds every year as you can, just in case that also gets eliminated, so you don't get caught up in, well, we thought we were gonna get X, but we didn't get Y because of a change in how the federal government shares funds with the state, then back to us. I really don't have anything besides just to remind you, we have 15 municipalities. You'll hear that in October, but there's a lot of municipalities that are impacted by the school district's budget. I don't have anything else to share of the narration of revenues and expenditures. The next page is talking about debt. We have no debt. The OPEB liability, the board has done an awesome job of trying to not have unfunded liabilities. Even though this year the board approved a sick leave payout addition to our certified staff, it's not going to impact the annual budget because you can use our post-employment benefits fund to pay for those expenditures. Fund balance, that was an increase of last year, and that was not a surprise through the year because of two major things. We had a staffing change last year, right as the fall started. Remember, we had an administrator leave. That was a big reason for that. And then the insurance change that I mentioned with changing a lot, staff members decided not to take our insurance. So that, was a budget component, but was not used. This number here continues to creep up just a little bit each year. The fund balance is 14% of our general and special education funds. That is in the key performance indicators or our continuous improvement plan. And as that number slightly ticks up, it's less money that needs to be borrowed. In October, you will still be presented with an option to approve cash flow and needs through the line of credit. We will need that to meet the timing of our revenues and expenditures. I wanted to bring this up. I had a typo on the enrollment page. For the middle school, I put 551. It's actually 531 students from the sheet. That's my fault. I must need cheater glasses now. I just missed it, so that's my fault. Bless you. The enrollment changes almost every day. Maybe that's too much of a generalization, but there are student changes that happen all of the time. And this is just what we knew at the time of putting together the packet. Looking into the past, into the future, you can see that we are anticipating declines in enrollment. The hardest part about enrollment projections is 1 year's really shouldn't be your baseline for what happens. Perfect example of that, Mr. Black and I were talking today, Mrs. Grable knows this very well. We have 7 4Kers at Sugar Bush this year, right? And we have how many kindergartners right now?
24.
24. So those 4Kers go up to kindergarten. Last year, we had a lot of 4Kers, and then they go to kindergarten. So that doesn't mean we're gonna have 7 4Kers, hopefully, moving forward every year. And if that would happen, well then, you would know, you'd share about it. Usually you need a 3-year trend of that's what happens. So just, enrollment is what it is right now, but we wanted to share that where the number of students are. And you will see this again during the 3rd Friday count as well. This is the longitudinal history of levies since 1984. Just, we put this in every year, it kind of gives people a perspective of where things look at. This isn't, I did not copy this in color, but I believe it's colored on mine and maybe in your packet. If it's not, the low line is the district. We've almost always been below the state average of the tax rate. So New London has done a really good job of the equalized tax rate. Just gonna flip back here, and I wanted to show you a couple components of expenditures, because that will show you a couple pieces of the puzzle. So in the special you look at the increase in expenditures, the general fund changed by about $300,000, and then the special projects fund increased by the $500,000. That is related to our expenditures to record for the fitness center project. So last year, we recorded the revenue as a receivable, and then this year, we're recording the expenditure to pay out for the equipment. So, yes, there's a increase in expenses, but that's to pay out what we needed to for the project, and then that's reimbursed by those donors that come to do that.
So did you establish Fund 49 then?
When I talked to the auditors, they wanted us to use the Fund 21 instead, because it's a gift.
Because I know you talked about that
Yes.
It was a board meeting in April, whatever,
Yes.
and you approved fronting the school district money. So how much, because I think that's complete now, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So how much of that money was actually cash that came in, and how much did the school district front, the strength center to complete it? Because I know, there's 3 different components of funding that. There's actual contributions, and then there's pledged.
Yep, we just had that chat the other day.
Yep, so we recorded $107,500 as a receivable. And that means that's how much we needed to receive as pledges that came in. Now, this September, I billed for $32,500, and then one of the donors said, I wanna pay it all. So we actually, after this fiscal year, will have $63,000 left to receive as pledges, and 48,000 of that comes from one donor. So the project is
So
funded.
basically, the district loaned,
Yeah.
yeah, 63,000. Because I know we were talking about 25,000 back in that meeting in April, and it was kind of confusing when you were doing the numbers, because at that time, it seemed like you were using pledged numbers as actual cash in.
I think we were okay with it because of the purchase power right now of today's money over delaying.
What's that?
I said, my understanding of, we were all okay advancing, let's say, because of the pricing,
Yeah, I
like the
was just-
buying power
Yeah,
now
and
compared
I'm
to
all for
waiting.
fitness center, I was just kind of curious how much get,
I think it seemed
number of budget.
insignificant, kind of,
Yeah,
right?
and actually, I was impressed that we're as far along on
Right.
collections of those pledges that we are. So that was a positive surprise.
So really, after this year, we'll have just a little over 60,000 we'll need to get back.
Thanks.
Okay, I have one other piece of the puzzle I wanted to share. The spending increase.
one question about the grant section.
Yes.
Probably more generic than what you outlined, but is there any, like, where are we at with our co-op with grant writing as far as the city
Sure.
chamber
So
school
we have
goes?
one grant that we're waiting on for the mapping software to map basically the landscape of each school. It's a grant for approximately 30-some thousand. So we should be finding out relatively soon. Hasn't been awarded yet, but that's what's on the table right now through that process. That was helped facilitated by Peyton and the high school staff.
So is there anything else, like, is one person in charge of like funneling the ideas towards them, or are they seeking out on their own, or?
So Peyton is doing a great job of putting stuff out to our admin team, putting stuff out to myself as well, our admin team.
So he's finding
Yeah,
the ideas where she is,
we're
yeah.
pushing resources back and forth to say, might this be something? If we have an idea that comes forward, let's say like on playgrounds or something
Sure.
like that, we could say, we're interested in something on playgrounds, dive into it, see what you can find. So that's the current dialogue that's happening with, so it's been a positive process, so hopefully we'll get this grant that we've applied
Oh,
for.
that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
The last expenditure note was on the capital projects fund, and this is where the stadium, at Bulldog Stadium restroom and bathrooms is coming from. So that is an increase in the expenditure as well, because the board approved the project, so it's budgeted for out of the capital projects fund. So it comes out of this fund balance that's in there of $1.4 million for the project. So two of the big expenditure components are items that are, one, coming from a fund balance, in Fund 46 to pay for the project, and the other one is coming from a bill that we paid for the fitness center project, but is being reimbursed over the next few years from the donors, if that makes sense.
Joe, while you're on the topic of the capital improvement funds, any capital improvement funds that are in that fund at the end of the fiscal year and the beginning of the new fiscal year, is that go towards our fund balance?
It does not.
No, so we can't count that as, even though it's money that we have in the bank that we're not currently using, it does not, we're not credited as part of that 14%.
No, because the statute requires it to be segregated into a fund, because when it's segregated and funds are deposited in there, you receive state aid on that expenditure
Sure.
going in. So
Okay.
they don't want you to get it twice by having it in your general fund. That's all I have, unless some of you have more questions. Again, there's the supplemental materials, there's different ways to really look at the same thing at the end. I really appreciate all of your questions, because it helps the community too that will review this and just listen to what is talked about, because if you just look at this alone, you might not always know the details.
I just have kind of probably more of a point than a question, but, as you're out and about, people maybe, in the community ogling, like what the neighbors down the street might have, and overall, New London's operating budget is what, like 37 million, 38, okay. Whereas like a Hortonville is 70-something, right? Like, I just think people forget we're not the same, right? Like, we don't have the same funds available, but I think we do a really good job of what we do have, of getting the most out of it. It's hard to compare when you drive past, but like, we're not working with the same kind of numbers, you know?
So, Joe, if I'm reading this right, even though the 325 additional revenue limit per pupil that normally we get in equalization aid, but this year is not going in equalization, is going basically into the tax levy. In spite of that, am I reading this right, we're still under 6 mils on any given taxpayer's bill. It's good, school taxes will be under 6 mils, is that correct?
Yes.
I think that's an excellent number, because when I came on this board, I think we were close to 10, you know, so I think over the years, you know, your staff has done a good job, the board has done a good job. being very thrifty with taxpayers' money.
I think it's safe to say then as well, Mr. Martins, and we have this conversation when we get closer to December, that this is a projection of an overall average of all 15 municipalities as we know it, and if it were divided equally with individual reassessment of properties, you know, throughout the 15 municipalities, everybody won't always be at that 5.5, you know, 5. It could fluctuate depending on reassessments within, but as a district as a whole, as that overall average, yes, 5.55 is where we're at.
I will take this time to compliment Mr. Markwood on the excellent job you do on coming up with the budget every year, and generally our accounting that's second to none. While we differ in opinion from time to time on individual items, you do a stellar job.
I wouldn't want to.
Thank you.
Good job, Joe.
Hold on. Should
All
we
right.
roll right into the next
Roll
meeting?
right into the next meeting. We establish roll call and pledge of allegiance.
Before we start, is there any interest in public forum with members from our community? Anything come forward? Okay,
Okay.
all right. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What time do we have up there?
6:52.
All right, moving right into the consent agenda. If I can, I would like to combine A and B with the approval of minutes from the regular meeting of Wednesday, August 13, and the approval of the minutes from Monday, August 27, if there's no objections. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve that.
Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor? Opposed? C and D are gonna be in closed session tonight. Moving into reports, Scott, you're up on the
Yep.
calendar.
Thank you.
Wait, C and D?
C and D. is
C and
closed.
D are both gonna be closed session items
Okay.
tonight.
Board members, the month of September, tonight, we're at our regular annual meeting, regular board event meeting tonight on the 10th, noting that we will have our special meeting on the 24th. As we roll into October, we'll keep that same cadence of the second Wednesday of the month on the 8th, and then note our special meeting on the 22nd. I believe there's 5 Wednesdays in the month of October, so everybody gets a break at the end of the month there with an extra week within before we move on to the month of November. I know our, Charles will be commenting on some of the other items on our calendar as well. To my report, just to give some brief highlights of where we've been since the last time we've gathered in August. Our all-school convocation took place on the 26th. Thank you to board members that were able to attend and be part of our welcome back to our staff. Great sessions that were presented, reflecting on our continuous improvement plan and work of our subgroup, and really setting the stage of expectations and success for all students as we move into the new academic year. Just highlighting again, as all board members are knowledgeable of our hires throughout the past several months as we prepared for the beginning of the year, just publicly noting and welcoming our new administrators and certified staff members that are joining us and leading our students in their respective areas as well. September 2nd, we started our academic year, as all are very aware of, with our staggered start with our freshmen and our 5th graders, and selected grade levels at the elementary, and then flip-flopped on that day 2. Our staff were outstanding in the sense of getting the wheels going, if you will, and we're excited to bring our students and staff back. Just a shout out as well to our transportation department. The first couple days, in which can be a little hectic at times for our newest riders and students and staff, as some processes and routes change. The Marshes, if you will, down at the garage did a great job, as well as our drivers, making sure that families were informed. Our drivers were ready to roll, and the students arrived safely and found their way back. So well done by all facets of our organization. Our STEP program, tomorrow morning, we will be kicking off just a late breakfast with our STEP workers, our senior tax exemption program, which is led by Patty Grossman. We know our step workers are supporting our classrooms and teachers and buildings in great ways through that volunteering, which also comes with a exchange of tax relief as noted in your board report. If you know of individuals that meet the qualifications, feel free to have them reach out to Patty or myself to be part of that opportunity. And lastly, looking at our B212 extra degree of effort, like to highlight Wade Berglund and Chris Burbridge of our system engineer and assistant technology individual of Chris. No easy task. Every year, as Mr. Marquardt mentioned, purchases and updates of technology as well as other systems to ensure fiber optic breakthroughs that take place, in and around the area that stress our system to make sure that we are able to communicate and function on a regular basis, technology-wise. Thank you, Wade. Thank you, Chris. Our staff thanks you as well as getting them up and running for the academic year. Any questions for myself?
We could just add the policy committee meeting, right? to the
Yes, the
calendar?
policy committee meeting, I believe, is on the 29th, and the connections will be on the 17th. Yes. Committee members that are knowledgeable or on those committees have been communicated that.
What was the date for connections?
17th. Or
18th. It's the
18th.
last, it's the Friday,
Okay, yes, right,
Oh,
18th.
September.
September, yeah.
September.
Okay,
And the 29th of September as well for policy.
yep.
Thanksgiving.
All right, moving into C, business services, Joe Marquardt.
Two quick items tonight. The first is, this has been a discussion point each of the last Septembers with school bus operations on the road now. The state really wants to make an emphasis on individuals stopping the buses that are stopped. They gave you some data of the alarming statistics of people passing buses when their stop arm is out. We talked to Mark this afternoon and said if you could give me an average of how many times this happens. He said right now, definitely daily, but he says as the year goes on, it ends up being maybe once or twice every few weeks, where he said right now he believes, it's just generalization, people aren't used to having buses on the road from June to September, and now they're on the road again. They're just trying to, you don't wanna say relearn, but just remember that we, across the state, have buses on roads. So it's really important that people are stopping, because you know that there's people crossing. You can't always do door side, they're crossing in front of buses as well.
I would say in reading those numbers, I was quite shocked. And that's depressing. But in the future meeting that I know Scott and I are gonna have with Sheriff Tim Wells, I have an idea on maybe some enhanced enforcement or possibly some activity on that front. Maybe we should discuss with them, so. Thanks.
One note on that is, Mark Marsh said that the Wapaka County Sheriff is incredibly responsive to whenever we have violations. They'll catch it, they review it, they call, they make the report, and the citation's issued. Said that the county's doing a really good job, so that's a
Yeah.
plug for them, that when we report it, especially if we have video evidence too, they're definitely gonna receive a citation. Second item, again, this has been in topic summaries director reports for a number of years. Donation from Tygerton Lumber to our high school woods class. This year was white ash and red oak, so that's awesome. For that donation, Chris, thanks for helping, always try to work through them to make that happen, and we sent thank you letters to them. Was it Sarah Morak, is that her name?
Sarah Morak, she's the
Yeah.
comptroller. It's a new contact for us. They've had change in management over there. So from last year to this year, I was a little worried that whether we would continue to receive support, because they're obviously in a different school district, two or three districts over from us. But they not only continued it, but they doubled the value of what they
Oh.
donated, doubled the board footage and the value as well, so.
the board members remember, that was the board's recognition of the business partner of the year last year. We recognized them, so continued thanks then. from that
Maybe
as
we
well.
could get some pictures of the projects the kids do and then enhance our thank you note this year.
Yeah, that would
I
be
mean,
good. I
like,
think
'cause, you know, the
Yeah.
boys came home with like a really cool nightstand and
Sure.
it might be nice to see what happens to it.
Yeah, it's over $4,000 worth of value to the wood that they donate.
All right, moving on to pupil services, Mrs. Sarah Johnson.
Good evening, board. Just kind of calling to light some of our staff towards the end of their summer, that they were very busy getting ready to share some of the training and expertise that they have related to nonviolent crisis intervention and also CPR. And we had a host of staff, training all over the summer, but Danny Canba had led our nonviolent crisis intervention training, which focused on positive behavioral supports. We had a good number of staff that took part in those trainings on a couple days in August. And then those same days, Annie Schmidt, our physical therapist, she did CPR and AED training. And then our physical therapist, occupational therapist, and school nurse, they had come in this summer and planned some rotations for instructional assistants to do some training as well. So just wanted to recognize them and appreciate their time that they spent doing that this summer. And then, so excited for our youngest learners, our littlest bulldogs, the Community Connection. Those are the child find screenings that we do during the school year. Those will be coming up starting next month. So the first one will be October 10th from 9 to 10 a.m. at the library. So families with children who are ages 3 to 4 to be sure to bring their child, and that will happen every month. But the first one is coming up.
Thank you much. Moving on, teaching and learning services, Tamara McCartney.
McCartney.
Sorry, I'm a
That's
little
okay, we'll
hoarse
get there.
tonight.
We'll get there.
I'll get there eventually.
You corrected yourself. Good evening, board. I wanted to remind you of that September 19th, third Friday that Joe brought up about 4 times during his budget, because that's a really important date. Our enrollment counts happen that day. And so if you have any buzz of anyone who needs to get enrolled, it's really important we get our paperwork done at that point. So I'm just gonna bring it up again so that one more time cameras can hear us say, if you haven't enrolled your child, we'd really like to make sure you got that taken care of that day.
Would you say that we need attendance awareness for that day?
Yes, absolutely. So that's coming up on September 19th. That has something to do with our budget. Our staff this summer did some work to implement our UFly resource. And remember, we've had conversations about ARC and need for that phonics and phonemic awareness support that curriculum needs. And our K4 staff completed training in UFly and have been practicing and implementing that now for the first 7 days of school. And it is going well. But I wanted to let you know that that is in place and our staff are using that at the moment. That training was a part of some work that some teacher leaders did, and this next section is really long in your packet, and it lists a lot of teachers. And what I can tell you coming into a school district is, one of the things I'm looking for is culture and trying to pick out those pieces that I can see are working really well. And one thing that's working really well in the New London School District is those groups of teacher leaders that are taking it upon themselves to have done the good research, to have done really good work, and then to be spreading that work throughout their peers. There's nothing more convincing to a teacher is when another teacher tells them, this thing is working and I think we should do it and here's why, and has those examples. So some of those groups that worked this summer, we had a group of K-12 math leaders who started last year with the help of Jody Peterson and Ann Pinch. That team met this summer to set out a professional development plan for this school year, and we have a solid plan in place in order to continue the movement with our math instruction. We have a group of high school staff who last year went through training through CESA 6 on the disciplinary literacy. And disciplinary literacy is the idea that you read, write, and speak in everything that you do. So it needs to happen because you have to communicate when you are building something, you have to communicate when you are doing math, you have to communicate when you are doing music, or when you are in those English classes. And disciplinary literacy is a way to get students to interact in those fashions throughout all courses. So there's a group of teachers listed there who worked last year to learn those strategies, and this year through their IE structure, they are going to be supporting their other staff members in implementing literacy strategies and practicing them with kids so that it becomes a continual practice throughout the high school building, which is a really strong practice. So we have those teacher leaders. And the last one I'm gonna highlight today is a group of 4K through 4th grade teachers who came together to start the work on developing a 3-year strategic plan for literacy development within our district, to make sure that what we have in place for literacy has a clear base and we are moving forward and making changes and adjusting and looking at strong instructional practices as a way to make sure that we are keeping moving forward in our literacy instruction. I want to say thank you to all of those teachers because they have given up time, energy, and have been a wonderful mouthpiece for some of those best practices we want to see happening throughout the district. So they deserve all of the recognition for that work. Please, if you see them, thank them for that. And then the last thing, I would like to add just a 2-minute, it says 5 minutes, but it's really gonna be shorter than that, opportunity to be your teaching and learning director also. So school board, I would like to offer up to you that each school board meeting, I would like to give you a very short glimpse into something that is education-based that you may or may not be aware of because you don't work in the world of education every single day. Even though you have your hands in it and you are a part of these conversations, there are things that are happening in schools here and across the nation that I just want you to have a window into. So I've chosen the first topic, and we're gonna talk about instructional coaching for just 2 minutes today. But then I want you to reach out if you have something that you'd like to learn more about or you have ideas, please let me know. Because I'd like to make sure that as the Director of Teaching and Learning for the district, I'm including you in on that, in that benefit. So today we're gonna talk about instructional coaching. Instructional coaching is a research-based strategy where a teacher is assigned a coach, and coach and teacher work alongside each other in order to make improvements for students. That seems like a really simple concept, except for to find the human and the time in order to do that during a school day is often more of a challenge. In our district, instructional coaching happens from our administrators and from each other, but in a really informal manner. So there are some title teachers who work really strongly with our classroom teachers in order to improve practice. Our administrators are always giving feedback and offering support to our teachers as they go through their day, as they go through their rapid cycles for educator effectiveness. An instructional coach, there are instructional coaches in other districts whose only job is instructional coaching. And those coaches are thinking partners and professional development partners for teachers. And their entire purpose for the district is to work alongside teachers. When a teacher has a goal, I want to increase this happening in my classroom, then that instructional coach works alongside that teacher to improve practice together. There are many experts in this field. Jim Knight is an expert, Elena Aguilera is an expert, Diane Sweeney is an expert, Kathy Toll is an expert. You wanna find any more information about that, let me know. But I wanted to just shed one little area that I don't know that's been highlighted necessarily to this group of board members, let you know. And ask that if you have another area you'd like to learn more about, that you let me know.
And you did the instructional coaching at your former job, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I did, yep. And it's happening informally, just not formally here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So where I was keeping records and I was doing a little bit more of that, it's just happening a little more informally, yep. Okay. Any questions? Great.
Thank you so much. All right, moving to our student board representative report, Mr. Sloan.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to highlight some of the big events that have happened at the high school in the recent weeks, as well as that will be happening Starting off with freshman first day, on the first day of school, many clubs and activities were present with boards out in the hallway trying to recruit new members in the newest grade at the high school, as well as Bulldog Peer mentors, juniors and seniors were there in the morning to help welcome the freshmen, walk them around the school, and just make sure that they were comfortable in a new big building where they'll be spending the next 4 years of their education. We also have the Randy Marsh Strength and Conditioning Center at the high school that we have talked about tonight, with a new early bird class there that has around 40 students that use the fitness center every morning, as well as sports teams that can hold entire team lifts, something that usually wasn't able to be done with the old fitness center due to limits in the amount of equipment that was up there. Along with athletics, soccer has started undefeated and hasn't allowed a goal yet this season, so hopefully they can continue that throughout the season and make a strong run in the playoffs. Girls golf is also in its first season this year, something that hasn't been a sport before at the high school, but has been growing around the state. Volleyball also has 3 teams this year, something that hasn't been done in a few years, so that just shows how the numbers are growing, as well as the culture that the athletics are building around the school. Football has their second home game this Friday at Bulldog Stadium, where the Pep Band will be playing pregame as well as halftime. Hopefully they can pull out a win against Shawano, because I know the fans as well as the students are really looking forward to seeing them do that. There's also a home cross country meet at Hatton Park on September 20th, which is the only home meet for the cross country team. There's a musical coming up where 50 students are making that cast, crew, and pit. It takes place October 10th through the 12th. It's called the Pajama Game. I'm a member of the pit, so I'll be down playing music. Hopefully many of you are able to be there, but it's a fun time, really show off the skill that the music department has at the high school. Homecoming week is also coming up. It starts on September 21st with the hallway decorating, and then also Girls Powder Puff is that night. Hopefully the seniors are able to win this year. We haven't gotten to win any of the other years, but hopefully this is our year.
Did you say it's a Sunday night?
Yeah, it's a Sunday night this year.
So
That's
before
different.
homecoming week starts?
Yep.
No.
Yeah, so the weekend before the big dance at the end. And then the week ends with the football game on Friday against Wapaka, where the band will be playing at halftime. And then the dance on Saturday, which is open to all grades at the high school.
Well, thank you much. Appreciate the report. All right, moving back to you, Joe.
Okay, for vouchers, this week, we are expecting our buses to arrive tomorrow. So that is a voucher that is there to pay for the buses as they arrive. And then ED Chase is another progress payment for the high school roof. We have a closeout process that will take place as well, so there'll be one more payment for that project. Highlights for the month: we did receive our August tax settlement since our last board meeting, so that is the biggest voucher, or the biggest receipt for the month. And then also for the last several years, there's that sales tax revenue sharing from Allegheny County that we receive, and that's the 50% of the amount that they give us in August, and then usually in January or February, there's another portion that comes.
All right. First, we're looking for a motion to approve expenditures in the amount of $1,573,881.13 as per the list, September 3rd, 2025. Roll call.
Go ahead.
Need a
I'll make
motion.
the motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
No, roll call.
All right, roll call.
Who was the second? You.
Andy.
Mark Grossman,
Yes.
Nate Grundy,
Yes.
Chris Martenson,
Yes.
Andy Thorpe,
Yes.
Katie Batten, I'm a yes, John Heideman.
Yes. All right. Moving on, record receipts for the receipt register of September 3rd, 2025 in the amount of $2,308,401.31. Moving back into new business. Are you wanting to speak again, Joe, or just go right to a
We can
motion?
just take each each
Okay.
motion, as appropriate, as noted in lines A, B, and C, with the roll call vote following each of the items that would be appropriate, with a motion to second, and then the roll call to approve.
Yep. Noting some of the discussions we had and future discussions that'll come of it. Looking for a motion to approve the 2025-26 budget for all funds in the amount of $38,313,390.
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote on that?
Nate Grundy,
Yes.
John Heideman,
Yes.
Chris Martenson,
Yes.
Andy Thorpe,
Yes.
Katie Benton, I'm a yes. Mark Grossman,
Yes.
All right, moving on. Approval of 2025 Fund 10, I think that's supposed to be 25-26, Fund 10 tax levy in the amount of $10,153,795. Looking for a motion.
Make a motion.
Do I have a second?
And I'll second it.
Second. Again, roll call.
Chris Martenson,
Yes.
Andy Thorpe,
Yes.
Katie Benton, I'm a yes. Mark Grossman,
Yes.
Nate Grundy,
Yes.
John Heideman.
Yes. Approval of 2025-26 Fund 80 levy in the amount of $130,000 even. Looking for a motion on that.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Again, roll call.
John Heideman,
Yes.
Chris Martenson,
Yes.
Andy Thorpe,
Yes.
Katie Benton, I'm a yes. Mark Grossman,
Yes.
Nate Grundy.
Yes.
All right. Pursuant to a section 19.851C Wisconsin statute, Board of Education will convene in closed session to discuss the continued employment of certified support and co-curricular staff members over which the board has jurisdiction and exercise responsibility. Pursuant to a section 19.85, the Board of Education will convene in closed session to discuss the employment and compensation of certified and co-curricular staff members over which the board has jurisdiction and exercise the responsibility, and pursuant to 19.85 Wisconsin statute. The Board of Education will convene in closed session for the purpose of considering personal information, considering financial, medical, social, personal histories, or disciplinary data for specific persons, except where B applies, which, if discussed in public, would likely have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data. Looking for a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Roll call on that one as well.
Katie Benton, I'm a yes. Mark Grossman.
Yes.
Nate Grundy.
Yes.
John Heideman.
Yes,
Chris Martenson.
Yes.
Andy Thorpe.
Yes.
7:18 and closed session.
Very good. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight.
Right, what all do I need for this?
Good report there, Charles.
Thank you.
Sounds like a lot going on there.
It seems like your busiest time is starting the school year.